Alrighty. Who is the most evil in Dragon Ball Z?
Recently did a poll where I asked you all who you thought the most evil villain among the three major
What? I
final
wasn't there
opponents
for
that
that.
appear in Dragon Ball Z was. Frieza, Cell, and Buu. Of the nearly 50,000 of you that voted, the results were as follows.
Okay, he about to reveal the results. But when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, so I never read the mangas. I just watched Dragon Ball Z when it first came out and I was a little kid. And after a while, when you just watch, cartoons, you don't really classify evil into different categories like you do an adult. So when you're a little kid, the bad guy is literally just the bad guy, and that's it. End of story. Goku's gonna beat him, and then there it is, dude. When you're an adult, evil can take many different forms, and what I think. So in the beginning, we had what? We had Frieza, Cell, and Boo. All right, so and with each arc, there was some interesting storytelling to build up each bad guy. So I don't think it was a who was the most evil. I think each character brought their own brand of evil to combat Goku and friends in their own way.
In last place was Cell, who got an embarrassingly low
Oh my
2%
god,
of the vote.
Cell got last place. That's dang. If honestly, I don't know if this is just like a popularity contest, but what I remember from the Cell saga was Cell had, all his different forms, and then he took on this perfect Cell form, and once he reached this form, I forgot what his main motivator was to, he had the Cell games or whatever, and I forgot what his main motivator was. I think it has something to do like it was kind of like a Goku complex, except Goku, when he wanted to fight someone, he just wanted to fight someone and beat him to prove that he was better than them, and Goku just liked fighting. Uh, Goku didn't really want to kill anybody for the most part. Cell actually wanted to prove that he was better, but to prove that he was better, it wasn't enough for him to defeat his enemies. He had to annihilate them, which is, I think this is kind of like a Vegeta type evil, Because once he reaches perfect form, like he knew he was better than everybody, and it wasn't until Super Saiyan 2 Gohan came out and he had to bust out the one-handed Kamehameha on his ass. So, Cell coming out with the 2%, dang, that's sad. And plus, anytime you see Dragon Ball Fighter Z, the crowd goes nuts whenever Cell is the intro character, all right? You see the feet, and then the camera pans up, or something like that, and then he just goes from 0 to 60 in less than a tenth of a second with the thing, all right? How you going to do Cell like that?
In second place was Buu, who got a
Oh, okay. So Boo, again, another bad guy with a bunch of different forms in order to build up to his final form. And I think I would classify Boo more as just chaotic evil. Like a Dungeons and Dragons. It's just evil for the sake of evil. There wasn't any real rhyme or reason that he didn't want to do it just to prove that he was better. As a matter of fact, this Kid Boo form was just it reminded me of like an animal. He was animalistic. There wasn't, even though he had like a humanoid look to him, you would assume that you could kind of personify him because he had arms, legs, head, and like just a pink, human body essentially. But he didn't, I don't remember if he talked. So because he couldn't talk, you couldn't really work out his motivators or see what his intentions were. He was just a feral pink animal, more or less.
substantial 40% of the vote, and thus winning the poll was Frieza, who got more than half of the entire vote with 50.
Okay. I can 100% understand why Frieza came in first as, being the most evil, because there was a kind of implied history with Frieza and the entire race of Saiyans. So when you have like this, I mean, this is all like fantasy, whatever, fake stuff, but you have this one alien that essentially wiped out a race of a whole nother set of aliens outside a couple of survivors, the Saiyans of, Goku and Vegeta and, among others. So you have some remaining survivors, and Frieza knows the capability of what Saiyans can do. And at this point in time, Frieza is probably one of, if not the most powerful person in this universe. And he wants to keep it that way, all right? So the only people standing in his way from claiming the tippity top of the throne are just literally just Goku at this point, all right? I mean, he just shit stomped Vegeta. Vegeta's sitting in there in the water, trying to heal. And then it's just Goku out there. So at this point, it wasn't directly personal for Frieza to try to kill Goku. It was kind of indirect, because he didn't really have any personal gripes with Goku. He just had gripes with the race of Saiyans, is what I remember, I think. I could be wrong, but for the most part, I think that's pretty spot on.
58% of people voting that he was the most villainous person in Dragon Ball Z. Now,
okay, let's keep going.
This question was incredibly open-ended. Maybe
also, you have to think about the acts that made each character evil. A couple episodes before, you see Frieza. Well, I think you do see Cell, Boo, and Frieza kill multiple of Goku's friends. So I think they all, if I remember, they all fall in line of like, oh, you kill my one of my friends or one of the gang, and so on and so forth. But I think the thing with Frieza that set him apart was Frieza killed Krillin, and at the time there was a whole series called Dragon Ball where you had Goku and Krillin as like best bros, and here comes this evil bad guy killing the main character's best friend. So that's a good act to be considered like really evil. Then it's personal.
Maybe even on purpose. I was just curious to see what people considered evil to be in Dragon Ball, what makes a person evil, and who ultimately would be considered the worst person among the three of them, as they are all considered iconic and relatively high quality anime villains.
Yeah.
Today, I'm going to somewhat briefly explore how each of these three villains represent the concepts of evil, give my best answer as to who I believe to be the most evil among them, and give my answer as to who I believe their creator, Akira Toriyama, thinks is the most evil.
Right.
To begin, I think it's important to define what evil is and what Toriyama considers evil to be within its own story. Unfortunately, defining exactly what evil is has been a debate among philosophers for decades.
Yeah, you can really get into the weeds of, good, bad, evil versus, I don't know, good, evil. What's another one for good? I don't know, triumphant? No, that sounds stupid.
However, ultimately, it has become generally agreed upon that if evil is to be accepted as a valid term, generally there needs to be categories or types of evil which can more accurately reflect an individual's nature. For this video in particular, we will be looking at evil under the definitions outlined by Cornel in their piece, Kinds and Origins of Evil.
Ooh.
In this, they define 4 types of evil.
Okay, so the whole good versus evil thing is really perspective driven. What could be considered good for one person could be considered evil for another person. So, this is on a modest level of like, you got to think through it a little bit type deal.
Under the label of radical evil, or essentially evil to the point where it goes beyond the norm. as we are talking about superpowered anime villains who can destroy planets, radical evil feels like the most appropriate definition to go for.
Yeah.
Within the umbrella of radical evil, there are 4 subcategories that can define its specific type.
So you got radical evil, which is beyond the norm. All 3 of these bad guys can just blast planets for days. And I guess that would be beyond the norm in the context of a regular ass planet, but Goku and the gang and the gang of Goku and friends, they're all planet killers if they wanted to be. Goku, Vegeta, Krillin, Piccolo, shot a moon down, so on and so forth. So in that context, I don't know. Here, let's just keep going.
Violation of moral law, choosing evil for its own sake, repudiation of the moral law, and systemic evil. Let's now define each of these types, and then we can establish which of these types each Dragon Ball villain falls under. Violation of moral law. This type of evil is the kind of evil in which one truly believes that evil actions are more beneficial for them in some way than good actions are. In fiction...
Okay, so again, this is kind of hard to figure out. Like, evil action, bad for me. Good action, good for me. I mean, I get it, but here, let's just go.
This can often be seen as villains who are choosing to do bad things because it is for what they think is the greater good, or simply because doing evil actions, in their own view at least, is better for their personal well-being. A villain who may fall under this definition is
Thanos
in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as he believes killing half of all living things is ultimately a good thing, even though killing that many people is probably evil.
Yeah. Where, I mean, I was gonna bring him up. Like, Thanos is another good example of I'm doing this act for the greater good, and I think those type of bad guys are way more interesting. The ones that think they're the good guy, those guys, because they're so, they believe in what they're doing so much that they will do anything to overcome their what am I looking for? Their arc. They will literally do anything to get their way.
Choosing evil for its own sake. This is the definition of evil that many serial killers can potentially fall under. They know something is evil or wrong, and that it is only causing harm to others, but they still choose to do it. This may be the most simple definition. It is...
Yeah. Okay, so not all SKs fall under this definition, but many know that killing is wrong, but do it anyways. Okay, this is, we're just going to go with like the simple one for this one. And again, all 3 of those bad guys, Cell, Boo, and Frieza, they are all this type of person by this definition. They're all serial killers. They've all killed before, and they will kill again.
Choosing evil because it is the evil thing to do. We could actually look to Dragon Ball for an example of this, as both King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr. both proudly pronounce that they are evil and are doing evil things. Repudiation of moral law. Have you ever heard of the golden rule? The idea that you should treat everyone how you want to be treated? Mm-hmm. Well, the repudiation of moral law goes completely against this and justifies evil actions by saying that those on the receiving end of evil actions do not apply for whatever reason. In other words, by dehumanizing and minimizing the legitimacy of another person, it allows evil acts to be, in their view, technically justified.
Oh, okay. So I guess that's essentially... So a good example of this is what I would think Django Unchained. Okay? Who was that guy? Candy? The Leonardo DiCaprio character in Django. All right? He's a slave owner, all right? He thinks that all of the black people that he owned were subhuman. All right? They are the same as livestock. All right, and he treated them as such. So all of his actions, like remember when you first see him, he's doing that fight between the two dudes. All right. Now he probably wouldn't allow like two white dudes doing that, but because he thinks black people are subhuman and underneath him, it's okay to treat people like that for that reason. And the same thing, how he treats a lot of the other people in that movie. Like when he had like the dude climbed up the tree, but then he just sent the dogs on him to kill him, or when he sent the Broomhilda chick into like the little isolation hole or whatever for multiple days, weeks, or whatever. That is like a horrible thing to do to like regular people, but because he doesn't think that they're regular people, it's okay.
For an example of this, you can look to Suguru Geto in Jujutsu Kaisen, who does not see humans as being worthy of moral treatment and sees them as lesser beings, thus justifying his treatment of them. The fourth and final kind of evil is systemic evil. And this definition comes from evils that are not just committed by an individual, but an entire system. For example, corporations can be evil because they purposely take advantage of the consumer by selling them bad products and raising.
I guess. But the Frieza had a system, I guess. Frieza had the Frieza Force and the Ginyu Force under him. Cell just had, I mean, Cell kind of had a system of Dr. Gero and all the androids. And Cell was just another, what do you call it? Another experiment. He started absorbing people and shit. And then he popped out, like, I don't know, the little Cell Juniors. So I don't know if you want to consider that a system. And then Boo. I mean, the whole system with Boo, there wasn't really a system with Boo. It was just, you had Bibbidi and Bobbidi, and then you had the little red jabroni Deborah of like wizards to like summon him into existence or whatever. And then, it's Boo is unleashed on the universe. He's killed many, what do you call it? He has like solar system level power to just decimate solar systems. And I think it's more than that, actually. But Boo was just like a singular being. I don't think, like, I don't know, if someone could explain like the whole system, like systemic evil thing of Boo, then I don't know, I'm just like a little confused on that one.
Prices. Now, these four definitions may not apply to every single fictional character perfectly, or even real people perfectly. However, this is just what I'm going to be using for this video. That being said, let's look at the major villains in Dragon Ball Z and see which definitions of evil they can possibly fall under. We'll be giving points for how many categories they fall under and see who ultimately has the most points. We'll actually go in the order that you all voted for, beginning with Cell. Now, I completely understand why Cell was the one who got the least amount of votes. Cell goes through probably the most character development and changes over his arc that don't literally involve splitting into multiple bodies with different personalities.
Yeah.
Now, probably the most agreed upon evil thing that Cell does successfully is absorb a massive amount of people in an attempt to get stronger so that he can absorb the androids. Cell is doing this for completely selfish ends, and it's particularly interesting that...
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Predator 2. Like, where Predator is in the city, but instead of, killing everybody, like the Predator, Cell is just absorbing everybody to increase his power. If Toriyama could have set that up a little bit. I mean, I don't know what came first. I think the manga of this came first before Predator, I think. I'm not sure. But god dang, could you imagine, like, more Predator vibes in this? As opposed to, like, this, like, well, they're both fucking aliens. What am I talking about? Like, hopscotching around through the woods and shit. Dang, that I think that really would have been cool.
Cell is described as having actually no interest in slaughter or destruction, and only truly cares about, firstly, getting perfection, and then fighting strong people. However, this isn't 100% the case, as he does seem to genuinely enjoy inspiring fear in weaker beings, as he planned to systemically wipe out every single human being, specifically so he could see their reactions. Later on, by the time he's fighting Gohan, due to the possibility of actually losing, Cell's plans completely change to instead wiping out pretty much everything. And the prospect of something actually being stronger than himself essentially shatters his previous moral foundation. Another interesting scene that I want to point to is when the military attacks Cell. In this, he evidently waits until they have attacked him before wiping them out, even moving so that it doesn't destroy his arena. His justification for killing them? Punishing stupidity. The final aspect of Cell's true nature is betrayed when he bulks up against Gohan after realizing he is weaker than him, referring to Gohan as simply a thing rather than a person. If you don't see where I'm going with this.
Oh, okay. So because he referred to Gohan as a thing, that puts the check mark in that one box where it's like everybody is just subhuman to me. I mean, but that doesn't really apply to Cell. Cell's already an alien. He's not a human. Like, I think it's pretty believable for an alien to, like, all the humans to Cell are alien to him, much the same way that all the humans would view Cell as an alien, all right? And even the, like, humans to Saiyans, these two, you know, although they look like humans, humans to Saiyans are alien to each other. So, I mean, you know, okay, oh, this race of alien is superior to that race of alien. I get it from that perspective. Then, yeah.
I think Cell represents both a violation and a repudiation of the moral law. For a violation of moral law, he will gladly kill as many people as he needs to motivate or bring out the strength of others so that he can prove his superiority. As for repudiation, Cell seems to evidently think of every being as lesser than himself in his perfect form, deriving pleasure from their suffering and seeing inanimate objects as more important to him than human lives. So I think Cell gets at least a 2 out of 4 for categories of evil. Next is Boo,
right.
And while there are a lot of versions of Boo, there is no other character in Dragon Ball who is straight up just called evil more than Kid Boo is. Like I alluded to prior, the only reason Kid Boo had any good in himself to begin with is that he absorbed the Kaioshin, and later on, his good and evil halves literally split apart from each other. Within the story and many guides, Kid Buu is referred to as pure evil and evil itself multiple times. Particularly, he's described as essentially having no sense but an urge and a will to destroy things. In that regard, committing evil is literally inherent to Kid Buu's nature, which to a degree goes against the prior definitions of evil that we described. Due to being non-verbal, we never really...
What was that one definition where you know what good and evil is, but you still choose to do the evil thing? With Kid Buu, he has no concept of good and evil. He just does things. And those are just things that he does.
Really understand what Kid Buu's thought process is, but it does seem that a consideration or even just an understanding of what good is does not exist for Buu at all. While yes, Kid Buu's actions are evil, I don't think Kid Buu truly has any thought behind it. For Kid Buu, there is never an acknowledgement of good or a rejection of good or an interpretation of good for Buu to even consider. He's more of a force of nature than an actually morally aligned being who can make decisions based on good and evil. I'm not sure if I can give Buu any points here, but it is also clear that when it comes to just the total amount of good or evil that these characters are capable of within the world of Dragon Ball, Buu has the least capacity to do good. Finally, we come to Frieza, the one more than half of fans agreed was the most evil.
I mean, yeah, but since Buu has the least capacity to do good, but he doesn't know what good, the difference between good and evil is, wouldn't you also say he has no understanding of, you know, has the least capacity to do evil? Because, I mean, he was doing evil acts, but that was only from the perspective of everyone else besides him. But I get where you're going. I get it.
Now, just on the surface level, Frieza causes some of the most important and brutal main character deaths. He also is the one who wiped out the entire Saiyan race. Interestingly, guides describe Frieza as someone with an overwhelming talent for evil. I think this is very telling towards Frieza's character. Ultimately,
he knows the difference between good and evil and still chooses to do the evil thing.
He's a business person, a loan shark who conquers planets and wipes out races out of a sense of collection and control. We see that when he wants to be, he will do whatever it takes to get what he wants. Just look at how he acted in the Tournament of Power. I think it's very clear that what Frieza does is 100% in his control. He's aware that they are not what most people consider good things, and yet he still chooses to do them. I easily think that this falls under the first kind of evil, and maybe the second, as at least in comparison to the other Dragon Ball characters, he doesn't revel in the villainy of his actions, but rather the benefit that comes from them, like wiping out the Saiyan race to make sure they never overthrow him. Speaking of the Saiyans, I think his general feelings about them show his repudiation of moral law. He calls them lower life forms, and more iconically...
Yeah, he always called them monkeys.
Monkeys all the time, making it very clear that he believes he's...
Was it that you should share your energy with me, you monkey scumbag? Oh my god. I don't think I have ever seen this translation. The fact that they could... When I first saw this episode, back when I was a little kid, I don't remember what age I was, probably like 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. I would have remembered if someone said monkey scumbag in English, and in, you know, because I think, what was it, when this show first debuted, they debuted it like with the dub, right? It has to be. It didn't debut with the subtitles, I think, or at least that's not what I remember. But oh my god, if this is the original translation for the subtitles, this is so funny.
A superior order of being to them, and thus further justifies his attempts to wipe them out. Finally,
and you know what's funny? Frieza still chose to call Goku a monkey, even though he didn't have his tail, because, I mean, up until this point, Frieza probably has seen like a bunch of Saiyans, but he saw them all with tails. But Frieza never saw a real Super Saiyan, but he knew that Goku was a Saiyan, even though he never saw him have a tail. Goku was just some like superpowered dude, and it's not like Frieza ever saw any of the original Saiyans go Super Saiyan. You know, Goku's the first one. So how would he even know that Goku's a Saiyan? Like, did Goku just like out himself? Like, I'm a Saiyan. Oh my god. Like, how? Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah.
And interestingly, we end up at the fourth and final kind of evil, systemic evil. And while an individual might not usually be able to carry it out, by being the leader of a cruel and impressive force that rules over hundreds of planets, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Frieza also carries out systemic evil.
A business
So does that
evil.
make him or Boo actually more evil? While Frieza has more points, I think importantly, Frieza is technically capable of good, but chooses not to be, while Kid Buu really isn't. Personally, I think due to the far greater nuance and complexity in Frieza's evil, and the fact that he can actively choose not to be when it benefits him, I think he is far more evil in totality than Buu is. Think of it this way. You have a glass of pure water, but you also have a gallon jug of salt water. While yes, the cup is pure, the jug has more water. In this instance, water is evil, and Kid Buu is the glass, and Frieza is the jug. And honestly, it seems like Toriyama agrees with this.
Yeah.
In an interview for Daizenshuu 2, he talked about what inspired the creation of Frieza, and that Frieza was based on real-life loan sharks in Japan that caused an economic crisis.
Oh my god. That's the first time I'm actually hearing this. The character of Frieza is based on loan sharks.
Type of person that Toriyama considered the worst person of all.
Oh, that's so funny.
As always, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure to like and subscribe. This was a very different type of video compared to what I usually make, so please let me know your thoughts on it and if you'd like to see more in the future. Which Dragon Ball villain do you believe to be the most evil? Maybe there's a villain in Dragon Ball who you think is even more evil than these three. Let me know your thoughts and how I'm wrong in the comments down below.
Oh, man.
See ya.
That was funny. Oh my god, I love that. But I mean, as far as like the DBZ arc, I mean, these are like the main like bad guys, yeah, there was like Raditz and the androids right there, and then you had Vegeta. I mean, maybe you could have thrown Vegeta in there for, like before he like turned good guy, or at least neutral guy. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I think I probably would have went with Frieza, just because, hey, you killed my best bro. You know, like, uh, it, it- I don't know. It is hard because Cell kill. Well, they everybody just kills. Like all three. Like you can't really categorize who kills the most because Frieza has killed hundreds of planets. Cell, I mean, he's really just really brand spanking new. He went from a little baby Cell into like perfect Cell, and up until that point, what'd he do? He killed a whole city. Oh, whoop-de-doo. That's nothing compared to like a whole bunch of planets. And then Boo was chilling in an egg thing, but he was put there from something he did before. Like he existed before, and then he got put in the egg. But before he got put in the egg, he was out there destroying hundreds of planets and solar systems. All right, so to try to like, as far as like which one is like the most mass murdery, like Cell is obviously the least, Boo is like the most, and Frieza is somewhere in the middle. But I don't know. That's about it. All right. Um, yeah, this is a great video. I like this from Lonk's takes. I want to see some more from Lonk. All right, but yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.